Welcome to the Doctor's Life Podcast with Diane Ansari Wynn, MD. Dr. Diane is a stress and burnout coach for doctors. With her 15 years of experience as an anesthesiologist and certification as a physician development coach, Dr. Diane coaches doctors on how to live a rich life of purpose, fulfillment, freedom, and happiness both at work and at home. In this podcast, Dr. Diane brings together doctors and researchers that are experts in health, wellness, stress, and burnout, as well as doctors that have been successful in clinical practice, academics, non-clinical careers, and business to share their expertise and life experience so that you can live your own life purpose, fulfillment, freedom, and happiness. To get free access to a PDF and video of easy and proven strategies that melt stress away and keep it away, simply register at www.dianeansari-win.com. That's www.dianeansari-winn.com. Now here is your host, Dr. Diane Ansari Wynn.
Hi, it's Dr. Diane here, and I have a quick request before we jump into the show. If you like this podcast, it would mean so much if you took just a moment to hop over to iTunes, write a review, and rate the show. That is how other people will find the show and get the same great value from it that I hope that you're getting. It just takes a few moments to click a star rating and write a quick note. Now, on to the show. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Doctor's Life podcast. Today we're going to be talking about physician wellness with Dr. Kathy Stepien. She's a pediatrician, a former physical therapist. She's also a writer, philosopher, and she made it a point to include in her bio that she's a mother, which I love. She has a particular interest in physician wellness, and using resources from her broad background, she works to enhance and cultivate physician wellness at the personal, institutional, and cultural levels. Her goal is to foster widespread improvement in the culture of medicine, benefiting physicians as well as their patients. And she's also the founder of the Institute for Physician Wellness, which we'll be talking about a little bit later in the podcast. Welcome, Dr. Stepien. So great to have you on the Doctor's Life podcast today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Awesome. Well, as all of you know, I like to ask each of our guests how they got into medicine. So we'll start off there with Dr. Stepien. You have a really interesting story about how you got into medicine. So I'd love to hear it.
It's an unusual story. It's certainly not a traditional path. I started out in physical therapy, and I worked in that field for 13 years. I really enjoyed it, but I also recognized that I didn't want to keep doing it for the rest of my life, that I had this natural draw toward medicine, and at one point I realized it's now or never, and so I switched careers midway through.
Dr. Stepien and I actually met at a conference on physician burnout and wellness a little while back, and you shared with me as we've gotten to know each other that you actually burned out of physical therapy. Could you talk about that some?
Sure. I found that by nature I am a pretty compassionate person, and certainly just really gave myself to my work as a physical therapist. I think that I was giving and perhaps didn't really recognize or understand how to set boundaries and do healthy things for myself. It really led to feeling pretty depleted. I felt like I kind of didn't have more to give, and I burned out. And it took some time to bounce back from that. I knew I was ready for a career change and wasn't sure what that meant for me. So after some trial and error, I had explored a bunch of different ideas. I went to graduate school, and shortly thereafter, I decided, I really do have this burning interest in medicine, and it's not going away. And I reached a point where I couldn't not do it anymore. It was time to dive in, even though I had spoken with and shadowed so many physicians who recommended not going into medicine because they were burned out or they were disinterested in medicine. It really took me stepping back and saying, yes, I understand. I'm going in with my eyes wide open, and yes, this is what's best for me. So it was a gradual process. Burning out, I think, can be really humbling. It's a lonely place. I felt so fortunate to be working with the patients that I was working with, but also felt like I needed to feel comfortable that I was that I was doing all that I could for them. And I know when your well is dry, you don't have anything to give. And I think I reached a point where I realized, I'm like, if this was me, if I was the patient, I'd want my care provider to be healthy, to be able to be at the top of their game. And when you're burnt out, you're not at the top of your game.
Right. Yeah. Well, I would imagine that your perspective, your experience deciding to leave physical therapy and eventually entering medicine must be a great foundation for your interest in physician wellness. And as I mentioned earlier, you've founded the Institute for Physician Wellness. So how did you come to found the Institute for Physician Wellness, and what does the Institute for Physician Wellness do?
I've had an ongoing interest in wellness topics. I think that's part of my work as a physical therapist and certainly my work as a pediatrician, and that's really been the foundation for how I have approached so many things in my life. And the piece of that, I think, is simply because we have knowledge doesn't mean we have skill that we can then execute. And so learning some tools myself and putting them into place and then sharing those with others, I think, has really been eye-opening.
Mm-hmm.
And so I founded the Institute for Physician Wellness because as I've moved into medicine rather than physical therapy, I saw that there are so many physicians that are struggling, people who are either leaving medicine or dissatisfied with medicine or just really struggling with their situation. And there's just such a need in medicine for us to support one another and make some healthy changes. So it's my natural interest and also kind of coming together with what I see as a need in medicine with our colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about physician wellness, I think about it on the personal level. So I think about it like with healthy habits that we have. Getting exercise on a regular basis, getting adequate sleep, having healthy relationships, setting boundaries, things like that. I also think about it at the organizational level, like the institutional level. What are we doing at that level that sets us up for success? So are we spending 2 hours on the computer for each 1 hour that we spend with our patients?
Right.
Or
I just heard that statistic. It's kind of sobering there.
It is, isn't it?
Right.
Are we spending hours each night after the kids go to bed, finishing our chart notes? What are we doing as how we deliver healthcare in our country that is supportive of physician wellness, and what are we doing that really draws from physician wellness? So I like to look at it at that level as well. And then I like to step back and really kind of look at the overarching cultural picture of medicine. How do we, in the medicine with the capital M, how do we have this perception about who we are and what our role is as we work as physicians? And what are the cultural mores and what are the assumptions of us as a larger group in Western medicine?
Mm-hmm.
So I like to look at it on a lot of different levels. I don't think wellness is just one thing for one person and one time. I think that there's so many different aspects of it, and each person's situation is going to be different, and then each person's experience in a different time in their life or different work situation or a different stage of life is going to be different. So I think the idea of wellness is really a very fluid idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And, it's interesting. I was just talking with my husband last night, who's a physician as well, and I was asking him, I was just, as I think about these things a lot, as you do, and I was thinking, why are doctors not known as a healthy group of people? When you think of like what is a healthy group of people, you think like maybe fitness instructors, yoga instructors, nutritionists, like kind of ancillary people. Like doctors would not come up for a long time, I think.
Oh, not
even
at
though
all.
even though we advise our patients around us to have healthy habits, and even at the public health level, we're proponents of health, as you mentioned, and wellness, not just the treatment of disease, but the treatment of the whole person. And it's very ironic that we're not known as a healthy group of people. And it's actually in our culture, I would say, kind of viewed as like extra or some sort of coddling or some sort of form of weakness to be mindful of our own health. So definitely a cultural change is in order.
I think so. I think it's really tragic that we don't set a better example and that we're not supporting one another in making healthier choices on so many different levels, and that the culture of medicine is one that doesn't necessarily support physician wellness right now. I don't know if we look back in history that was the case, but it certainly is the case right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I was just recently reading a newer version of the Hippocratic Oath, and there are some parts in there that do talk about making sure that we're really like whole, and I'm paraphrasing, that we're whole and healthy people, and that we're part of the society that we live in. And so even the basis of what we hold as our moral code, for lack of a better term, does include some part that speak to us as individual physicians. And to your point, the healthier that we are, the better health care we can provide for our patients as well. So I completely echo your sentiments, of course. I imagine that's what led you to found the Institute for Physician Wellness. Can you share with us what the Institute does and provide?
I think of the Institute as kind of being an overarching base for physicians to come to. I think of it as a resource for people who are interested in wellness and who want more information, both on a personal level, but then also on, more information about, what can we do as an organization. I really, really love the part of physician wellness that I do in leading retreats or workshops. I think that aspect of it brings physicians together, creates community, and it validates and even normalizes, I think, the shared experience that we go through in medicine. And I think you mentioned earlier about maybe a badge of honor of working hard and self-sacrifice, and that idea in medicine that if we're tending to our own needs, then that is being selfish, or it's valued. It's disvalued, let's put it that way. And I think that the workshops and the retreats and the writing that I've done is a way to recognize that, no, physicians are human. We have needs, and it's important we address those needs so that we can be the best physicians we can be, so that we can provide the best care that we can be. And even going forward, I think so that we can advance medicine, Western medicine, to its fullest, we really require a solid foundation. And bringing that to it is something that the institution does. I feel like that's what I can contribute to medicine.
Mm-hmm. So what are you finding? What kind of response are you having? What are you finding that physicians are looking for when they respond to your writings or attend a workshop?
It's been pretty overwhelming. I've had an incredible outpouring of interest. So often I hear a common theme that physicians feel isolated, that they might feel like they're trapped, or that they can't make changes at their particular hospital or clinic, that they're kind of stuck. They might feel stuck because of student loans and feel like they have to work a certain job in a certain way in order to just survive. I've heard physicians talk about how empowering it is to be able to talk or to learn and listen to others about their own experiences and how they're not alone. They're not alone in what they're experiencing and going through, and that it's okay to just give themselves permission to feel what they're feeling and recognize that it's normal to have needs, and it's normal to need to sleep. It's normal to be human. So I've had a lot of feedback and requests for workshops and lectures that just open up a variety of those conversations.
Mhm. Mhm. So who would you say that your workshop is for? And what can one expect when they attend a workshop that's sponsored or created by the Institute?
I think that they can expect being met with kindness and compassion and laughter and permission. I think I try to really create a welcoming environment so that people can talk about some difficult things, that we can all share some difficult subjects. Not all are difficult, but some might be, and it allows us to just get together and be human. I think that when people come to a lecture retreat, they can expect that there's going to be credible learning, that we're going to look at what we know, what's in the literature, and then also what we know as a foundation for wellness topics. But then there's also going to be some time for self-care, that there's going to be some time to just decompress a little bit with people who have common interests and just relax a little bit as well. So some learning and some relaxing.
Mhm. And do you have some retreats coming up this year?
We do. We have a really exciting plan in place. In September, we're going to be hosting a workshop on the medical marriage. We have some experts who are Gottman-trained therapists who will be working with physician couples. So either one or two people in the relationship is a physician, usually marriages, but it could be any type of relationship, and working with them, learning strategies that can support relationships, and looking at the medical marriage as kind of its own relationship that has particular stresses because of our work situations. Mm-hmm. So we have that coming up in the fall. That's really exciting. And then in the winter, we're having our second annual retreat, and that'll be at Miraval in Tucson. And I'm really excited for that. We have a wide variety of topics for that one. It's not going to be just on one, like the medical marriage in the fall. In the winter, it's going to be on a variety of more personal wellness topics, so things like boundary setting, nutrition, non-clinical careers in medicine, meditation if people want to learn that, things along those lines. We're going to talk about some institutional. There'll be an update as to what other institutions are doing as far as supporting physician wellness, but primarily that one will be more on a personal level, as personal aspects of wellness for physicians. And then in the spring, we're doing a retreat at Esalen near Big Sur, at the Esalen Institute, and that will be on compassion in medicine and looking at self-compassion and mindfulness and how that can support our joy as physicians. So some really exciting programs in place.
Yeah, they sound very exciting, and I feel like I wish I had time to attend all of them, because all of them really pique my interest. Well, I'll come to the second one because I'll be presenting at the winter retreat. But
yep. Wonderful.
As I mentioned earlier, I'm in a medical marriage. I met my husband in medical school, and it's a constant dance to be able to negotiate two demanding careers and our personal goals, our goals as a couple and as a family. And gosh, having those Gottman-trained therapists is going to be such a bonus. As probably a lot of folks in the audience know, the Gottmans have done groundbreaking research in relationships. And one of their hallmarks is that they did video studies of couples and looked at their reactions to each other as they were talking to each other, and they've codified a whole new language and studied. So if you're even thinking about attending that, I would definitely contact Dr. Stepien about that. Of course, the second annual winter retreat will be amazing. And then I'm so interested as well in the self-compassion as a source of joy in medicine. In one of our other podcasts, I interviewed Dr. Bento Suarez, who is an instructor in cognitively based compassion training, and he brought that training, or did the training, and then he brought that course along with 5 other instructors to the School of Medicine at the University of Illinois at Peoria. So if you are all interested in that topic and want to learn more about that, there's another podcast on that as well. For more information about the wonderful work that you're doing, to contact you, to find out more about the retreats that are coming up, how can they reach you?
Probably the easiest way would be to go to our website. The Institute for Physician Wellness website is www.instituteforphysicianwellness.com. www.instituteforphysicianwellness.com.
Awesome.
And there'll be plenty of resources there for anyone who's interested.
Good deal. Well, Dr. Kathy Stepien, it was such a pleasure speaking with you. Are there any last thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience before we end the podcast today?
I just want to support and encourage our colleagues that if they're struggling or if they're wondering what kind of things can we do differently so that we have more joy in medicine and that we can be successful in our careers, I want them to recognize, one, that they're not alone, but also, two, that we can make changes that really make a difference, that there's hope, that they're not stuck, that there's new things that lie ahead, and just encourage them to be open to that.
Agreed. And well said. Thank you, Dr. Stepien. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening to the Doctor's Life podcast today. That's the end of our podcast for today. And until next time, I hope you all stay happy and healthy. Take care.
You've been listening to the Doctor's Life podcast with Diane Ansari Wynn, MD. Go to www.dianeansari-win.com to read show notes, listen to past episodes, share your comments and show ideas, and pick up your free PDF and video of easy and proven strategies that will melt your daily stress away. That's www.dianeansari-winn.com.